Hi, my name is Jan and I'm from PrintX. In this video we're going to talk about basic object manipulation. So this is going to be the basics, just how to put an object down, how to move it around, rotate it, etc. Easy stuff. And I think what we do, we might just build something at the end. It'll be a bit of a surprise. So let's start with a box. So very simple, we put down a box. So how to get an object there, you go to the side here, you grab it, drag it, place it down. And you'll see now that there is actually a grid on here as well. Now I'm using the right mouse button to turn and move around, and we can then make sure that we snap nicely to that grid. The handiness of doing that is that then we can actually use exact measurements. That's when you would start getting a bit more precise, but for this video we'll stick to this for now. So we have our box. Delete will get rid of our square, our sphere. And let's start by just changing the size of the box. Now we can do that one of two ways. We can start and say, right, we can look at the box menu here. We can say, right, I want to make that, let's make that 30, just to change the size a bit. And we can make it wider. Let's make it like 60. So you can go and work out, place exact measurements like that if you want. Another way of doing it is we can look at these corners. Now you'll see that there's each corner here. By simply dragging the corner, it's going to go in all sorts of different directions and can be quite difficult to control. Let's just undo what we did there. Now we want to increase it incrementally, the whole box. Hold down the shift button, click the corner and drag. And what will happen now is you incrementally enlarging that box. So let's say you want it to be 45 by 90, you can pull it out like that. Now you'll notice that my snap to grid here is 1 millimeter, so that's why it's moving out 1 millimeter at a time, and you grow the box as a whole. Now let's say, great, let's go back to, let's say it was originally, let's make it 20 millimeters by 40, like this. Now let's say I want to increase the box only into the right hand side. I can then click on this box button here and I can drag it. And I can move it exactly towards the right hand side. Another way of doing it is I can click down here and say I want to make that 50. And that's also going to increase your box. Now let's say you want to increase the height, the other portion of the box. You can click on any of these corners. I can make that then 30, and you can see the box grows like that. Now the only time this gets a bit complicated is that when you want to raise the box. Now here the functions change a little bit. So now you'll see that we've got a middle square. So if we click that one, this one gives us our height. So I can go for 20 mils there. That's going to change our height. Another way of doing it then is by dragging the little square itself up and down. Now what I found very confusing in the beginning is I ended up dragging the triangle, which actually moves the height of the box in space. So not actually changing the box size. So be aware of that, and that's where it can get a bit tricky to handle. So always make sure that you're clicking on the little square if you want to change the box size, and the triangle if you want to change the actual height of the box. Now that's just simple manipulating the box, changing size, etc. Let's talk about movement. Movement, well, you can just take it, drag it, nice and easy. You can also use your keys on your keyboard. And that will then move by your snap to grid setting here. So you can see I'm going left, I'm going right, up, down. And it's very much oriented to where you are on the screen. So if I'm here, for example, it's still going to be left, right. But now, remember, we're moving up. Up is going to be towards us because we're on the other side. So that's where you need to sit and think of that, right? That's where the up and down can be confusing. Now, the other problem with up and down is we're thinking that it's going up and down in space. To get that right, what you need to do is hold down Control and then press up and down to go in space. Make sense? So if you press normally up and down, it's going to move in that direction. If you hold Control up and down, that's going to move it like that. These are very handy when you do designing and you want to nudge it just a millimeter, or just, you can even set your snap to grid down all the way to 0.01 millimeter. You want to nudge it just that little bit to make sure that you don't overshoot it, because when you use the mouse, it's very easy to overshoot or undershoot like that. So that's the usefulness of using arrows instead of the mouse. Let's talk about rotation. Rotation, very simple. You'll see that there's these little arrows that pop up, and you'll see there's usually 3 of them. Okay, so one will be rotating along this axis, the other one will be around that axis, and the other one this axis. So that's your X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to get into too much detail with that. Just know that if you want to rotate this at the bottom, well, that's what that one's for. Now, to rotate, you click and hold that arrow, and then you move your mouse. Now, if you move it close, and you'll see that my mouse is within the blue circle, it increases it by increments of 22.5 degrees. Now, if you hold down the shift button, you'll see that that increases to 45 degrees. Now, if you want to go less than that, you need to move it outside the circle. And you'll see now that that's going to be in increments of 1 degree. Nice and simple. So now we've taken just that axis. Now remember, there's 2 more axes. We can take it this axis here. Now, I'm not going to say X and Y because it's going to confuse us, because it's different programs that we use. We use different sayings for X and Y. So in my mind, this will always be the Z axis. This will always be the X axis, and this will always be the Y axis. So it just depends on how your brain orientation works, and some programs it gets confusing and it changes around. Okay, so just remember that these are the little arrows for that. So that's the basics. Very, very simple. That's all stuff that you can do with one block. Now that's before we go crazy by adding more objects. So let's add in a second object. Now let's take a cylinder. So now we've got 2 objects there, right? And if you look at the top 3 here, again we've got our cylinder. Now here's something I would like to actually show you guys. The beauty of the cylinder is you can go and bevel it, which is very handy for designs later. Okay, and I'll show you some cool tricks we can do with beveling in another video. You can also then have segments. Now, segments. This is where things can drive you crazy. So you make this beautiful design and you think, oh, it looks awesome. And then you print it and it's got these blocky corners. That's what segments are. You want to increase that segment. The smoother you want it, the more segments you add into it. Then there's also sides. So the combination of segments and sides are going to give you the smoothest looking cylinder that you can get, and I would recommend the same for spheres as well. Okay, I always just keep it at maximum. For that reason, it's going to give you a nice move, and when you increase it, it's not going to distort, it's not going to give you that funny blocky effect when you actually print something. Okay, so that's just when it comes to, that's a handy little tip when it comes to anything that's curved. You'll see that this one, you can already see the little blockiness. So I very rarely would use the half circle because it doesn't give me the quality that I want. So I would rather go create my cylinder and cut it in half. So let me show you how to do that. Now you'll notice that we've got these ones here. Okay, these are holes. So whenever you see a transparent box like this, you'll see there's an option for solid or hole. Now very simple, I am simply going to place this in the middle there. And the reason I know it's in the middle is because I know my cylinder is 2 centimeters, 20 mils. My box is 20 mils, and I can use the grid to see nicely in the middle there. So that's one way of making sure that we're in the right place. Another way we can look at things is also alignment. Alignment is not going to give you that exact middle, so just be aware of that. But you can at least line it up in this plane and that plane. Right. Now, we want to create a half circle instead of a half cylinder instead of a full cylinder. So what we do is we select both those, the whole and the solid, and we are then going to union group it. So there's 2 types of grouping. So if I hit bundle group, it's going to group it together, but it's not going to union it. The beauty of this is if you're doing complex things, you want to see where you're cutting stuff and where you see the solids and where you're cutting it. It's handy for that. For what we're going to do now, we just want to cut this thing. So we're going to union group it instead. So as soon as we do that, now we've got half a cylinder. And like I said to you, the benefits of doing it this way is that now I've got a very, very smooth surface on that cylinder compared to what this one is. You see the difference? That's not going to be much of a difference with designing, but as soon as you're going to print it, you'll notice it. And so that's that. Right, now there's one motion thing I didn't show you, which is called drop. You can use this icon at the top, or we can just press D. What that does, it will always drop your object down to the workplace. Very, very handy. So if I'm up there, I can press D. Whoops, where did it go? It's going to be inside my box. Now, here's a little thing that I've been using to get to objects. Now, if I've got a box there, I can't see it, I can do one of two things to reveal it. I can either go and hide the big box, and then I can get to it and move it. Okay, now I didn't delete the box. So to get that box back, I just go hit the light bulb again. So that's a very handy way of getting back to that. But let's say, right, okay, that's fine, but I want to see what it looks like inside the box. So what I then often do is turn the box into a hole so I can see where it is. I can then move the box around to get that alignment right. Okay, then just make my box solid again. But then you go, oh, but that was actually meant to be a hole. So now I can hide the box, get the cylinder, turn it into a hole, show the box again. And now what we do is you'll see that there's the little hole underneath here. Just remember, I'm using my right mouse to move around. Another way of doing it is you can just hit the corners and things like that. Now remember, we turned that half cylinder into a hole now. So if I now combine it, union group it, okay, now we've got a square with that cylinder cut out underneath. So that's a very nice handy thing. And if I now want to just see what that looks like, to get a bit of a 3D view of it, I can hit hole and I can actually see the hole, can see how that's been cut out in through there. So this is just some basic object manipulation. Now let's think about it a little bit creatively. Let's build something. So I'm going to say let's build a very simple robot. I'm going to make it very super simple and easy. So I'm going to take cylinders for the arms. Remember, I'm just going to bump up those segments and sides. But what I want to do is I want to actually have this cylinder beveled at the top. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So as soon as we increase the segments, you'll see that when I do the bevel is nice and round. But if I take the segments down, you'll see that the bevel isn't. So we can then say that, right, we've got a nice flat bevel like that. So that's how you can then use segments to actually change that bevel from here as well. So we're going to start like this. We're going to make it look like a little bit of almost like a little Lego block robot. So that's going to be our arm. So he doesn't need thick arms like that. Let's make it a little bit skinnier. I'll say let's drop that down to 10. And we can drop this one down to 10 as well. Great. So we've got an arm. Now we want two arms. So we just simply hit Control D. And we want to move the arm. Now I want to move it, but I don't want to change the position in that direction. So I can either use just the arrows, like we spoke about earlier, or I can hold down Shift and move. Okay. What's nice about Shift, it's going to keep it lined up with that one still. Great. So we've got two arms. Oh, we don't have shoulders. So what are we going to do as a shoulder? Now we can just use a simple sphere. So we can do one of two things. We can either put the sphere down like that, then go and try and line it up. Right, we move it like that there. We can now try and move it, click it there. We move it around like that there. Try and move it down this way. Very much beginner stuff. The problem is that this takes forever. So let me show you a much quicker way of doing that. Wait, let me show you two more methods of doing that. So we could still do the cylinder right there. I can then go and select the two, and remember we're talking about alignment, so we can hit L for align. So I want it to be in the middle. Whoops, we We didn't want to move the cylinder. So if you don't want to move the cylinder, what you do is you select the cylinder as well. So you select both, hit L for align, click on the cylinder. Now we're going to line up with the cylinder. So right, we want the sphere in the middle, and we want it in the middle. Great. And then now when we line it up, we select the sphere. We know, okay, great. We know that the cylinder is 20 high. We want to move it 20 high. You'll see as I drag the arrow, there's a distance here. I can type 20, and boom, we're on top of the cylinder. That's another way of doing it. Let me show you an even easier way of doing that. I can take the sphere, and when I put the sphere down, you'll notice that there's like a circle at the bottom. Now that circle will automatically go and attach. Now I'm holding the button in, and as soon as I let it go, we've got our sphere. So this only works as you drag it out. So as I drag the circle out, the sphere out, I'm moving it around, and you'll see that it shapes it and go, whoops, I want to be right on the top there. Boom. And now our sphere is built right on top of the cylinder. Now we can go do the same thing again just to make sure we've got it nicely in the middle. We just go and align, click the cylinder, align, align, done. Interesting? Easy? Not bad. So let's say you've made that mistake. You've got the sphere here. You've already put it down. Oh man, I wanted to do that. What you can do is you can then use a function called cruise. So if you hit cruise, now you've got that circle back. So you can then use this for an object later on. If you create an object and you want to go and perfectly place it like we've done with the new object. So all is not lost. Now, again, let's just line that up. So we hit the L button. I'm going to hit the sphere. Make sure, whoops, let's try that again. This is what happens when you click in the wrong place. So we're just making sure we've got that sphere nicely lined up. And we'll see it's a bit of a weird shape. So I'm going to just, now what I want to do now is going to make it smaller. So remember our sphere was 10. So I'm going to make it, I'm going to use shift and drag. And let's make it 12, just a little bit bigger. And I'm going to just eyeball this one. It's pretty easy to do because I can see, if you look down here, as I move this around, I know that that cylinder fills those little blocks and I can use the grid underneath. Just a little fun, little trick. Now let's just drop that down so it goes into the arm. Great. Now we've got a shoulder. Simples. So we didn't really need to duplicate that earlier because now it's going to be easier to just duplicate this. So I'm hitting Control D and I am going to press Shift and drag it out. Right, great. Maybe that's a bit too much. Let's bring it back. That's fine. Now for the body of the I'm going to keep it simple. Okay, I'm going to just simply slap in a square. But we've got this whole rounding effect going. Okay, so what we can do with the sphere, which is quite cool, is we can go and fiddle with the radius to make things nice and round. But this works best when you get your size of the sphere right first. So I'm usually like to just place it in where I want it, and I'm going to make it then smaller here. So the reason why I want to control it here is that when I change the radius, it's going to give us a perfect little bevel edge. Okay. Now if I don't do it like that, so let's say I go and move this box around, we want to be at like that size there, right? We want to squeeze it a little bit over there. Now I'm going to fiddle with radius. You can see that it's not going to be quite right. Okay. Okay, well I've learned something now. I didn't realize that they must have changed that because that used to work differently. So let's do this. Let's see if I can emulate the old problem. The old problem was is you create a box, move it around, shape it any way you want, then you hit radius. There we go. It creates this weirdness. Can you see what I mean? That's the weirdness I'm talking about. So notice that I've already moved it around and everything. Whereas this time, I'm going to try and reproduce that. We put down our square. We haven't moved it. We've just simply worked on the size. Let's try again. Sorry about that. Now I'm going to just resize it this way. I'm going to resize it a little bit that way. We want to make it higher so that it's there. Let's change the radius now. So now you know. That's great. So now you know, if you put down the object for the first time and you don't move it around but resize it to the shape that you want, then change a radius, you're going to get these nice smooth edges without it going weird. Okay, so that's something for me to learn, and thanks for that. Now you'll notice that, well, we've got a problem here. Our gaps are not the same. So me being pedantic, I'm just going to nudge that back one, and that looks much better. Right. I can also look at it then from the top, just to make sure. Yeah, that's pretty good. Right. Now, our shoulders are not really going in. So what we can do is let's just grab a cylinder. We can connect them with the cylinder. So remember, I like lots of sides. Let's rotate that 90 degrees. And we want to make it smaller. Now, if I'm going to now make it, if I'm going to now move this, can you see now that I've got now a weird skinny shape? That's not quite what I wanted. So if I did that before I turned it, you know, it would have been easier to move. So sometimes it's better to manipulate something before you turn it. So I think I'm quite happy with that. We're going to go by 8 by 8. Let's go smaller. Let's go 5 by 5. Right. Now I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, great. We've got a little cylinder there. Let's just check the height. I'm going to move it up through there. And obviously it's not long enough. Remember, it's easier to grab the little black blocks and just drag it out. And again, we want it nicely in the middle. So I just eyeballed it, but we can do it the proper way. We can say, right, we've got lots of stuff that we want to align for now. Let's align everything nicely together in the middle. Whoops, that was wrong. Let's undo that. See what I did there? I aligned it in the wrong place, but you'll see that that's all nicely aligned. So far we've got this little upper body of the robot. We can give it a little neck. Now remember, we just want a neck nicely in the middle at the top there. That should be fine. I'm going to just make it nice and small, and we'll move it around. Again, we can eyeball it. I'm just going to align it. It's sometimes just easier. So we select those two. Just the neck and just the square. We align it. We want to align it to the square. Center, center, done. Let's give it a round head. So we just put the little sphere on top there. Great. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to go generally bigger. And there's our little head. So very simple stuff so far, as you can see. So that's what our little robot looks like. Now remember, circle has also got steps. Again, if you want a clunky circle, you can go all the way down to 3 steps. I prefer to just make it more so I can get a nice smooth surface. Right. This is not lining up, so it's going to drive me crazy. We want to line it up with the neck. Center, center, done. Now, let's do something totally different. Now, we haven't fiddled with a whole bunch of stuff on here, as you can see. So I'm going to grab some text. Now, this is a nice way of putting text. So I'm going to put text just over there, and we're going to call him bot. Now you can change the font. There's a few options for fonts in here. There are other ways of getting in more fonts, but let's not. We can put that in another video. So let's just call him bot for now. B-O, capital T. And there's our bot. Now, firstly, we need to get the sizes and things right, but you'll see here again we can bevel it. Okay, now this is where it gets confusing. This bevels outwards. Can you see? So you need to keep in mind that what it actually does, it just brings it closer to, it changes the gap in between the letters. Now that was with 0 segments, so you wouldn't see the bevel. If we now change the segments, you can see how it bevels from there. Same thing as we had earlier with the cylinder. 1 segment, lots of segments makes it round. So let's just give it 1 segment. So we've got a nice bevel text there. Remember, we want to make it smaller. I'm going to just drag that there and shift in so I can make it the whole thing together. And we've got bot. Now that's just to stand out. Let's give it a different color. Let's make it yellow. Easy. And we're going to align it. I like the height of that, so I'm going to just align it with this just in the center. Just in the center like that. There we go. Now we want to sync those letters in, which is quite easy because now remember we used the placement tool like we did earlier. Now if we hit this button here, we can see the plane that we placed it on. Now what's handy about this button is that if without it, you see the little arrow, it's just going to move it up and down according to the work plane here. But if we now do it according to the plane that we put it in on, you'll see now it's green. You'll see that that arrow's position has moved. So now it gives us an opportunity to go up and down through there, which is very handy to place things. Maybe not so much on a square object because this is pretty easy, but let's say we've got a circle and we want to put a little star on there. Okay, so you can see our little star there. So if I then do the normal plane and I want to move it down, it's going to go weird. You're going to see it's not going across that plane. But if I now go back, hit that object and hit the plane area and now go in, you'll see it's going to go into that same angle into the head. Obviously the circle is way too big, stars are way too big. But what's a cool thing we could do about the star is we can use it to make hair. How can we make hair? We're going to duplicate it. So simply hit Ctrl D to duplicate. Now I'm going to move it a little bit. I'm going to turn it a little bit in that direction. And let's just put it exactly where I want it. And we're going to just take it up a little bit. And we're going to nudge it a little bit that way. Right. Now let's duplicate it again. Now, did you see that I clicked somewhere else, press duplicate, it creates exactly the same thing again. What I could have done, which is totally different, let's delete it, let's start again. If I go and duplicate this, take that duplication, move it around. Okay, let's take that up a little bit. Now, you'll see I haven't clicked out anywhere else. If I now hit duplicate again, it's going to do exactly the same manipulation that I've done on that object. Boom. Can you see what it's done? So it's actually created me another one, but exactly the same movements that I've done already. So now let's just move this a little bit out. This is where the orientation can become fun. So we click on that there. I want to move it in this direction here. That's better. So it almost looks like we've got a little bit of hair going. Now, I'm going to simply duplicate that. Duplicate. This time I'm going to mirror it across that way. And then we just move it. So we've got some hair going. How's that? Now we need one more star at the top. Oh, it's a bit of a bold patch as well. So it's going to be easier just to take the star, plonk it down, make it smaller, move it in there, maybe make it a little bit bigger. There we go, drop it down, and we need one more star to fill that gap at the back. So this guy's starting to look familiar, isn't it? Just move it in there. Alright, suddenly our bot doesn't look like a bot anymore. Now it looks like a guy with some hair. Now, this is just a fun way of showing you how you can go with manipulation stuff. You can now go and take these little circles, put it there. Let's make it white. Make it smaller. Ooh, where did we put that thing down? So let's just make sure we're putting it on the cylinder and not on the triangle. That's better. Right, so make it white, make it smaller, bring it back to where we had it, and we're going to just move it into there a little bit, and we've got an eyeball. Let's do another one. Remember, we're going to just have to mirror it in this direction. We'll just use the mouse keyboard until we've got it to the other side. There we go. So that's our little bot, and I hope this has really shown you how you can use object manipulation and what you can do then to actually create something rather than just fiddle around and have no idea what you're doing and trying to figure out what to do with it. I've used a lot of different functions in here. I showed you how duplication works, how mirroring works, circling works, how to use different planes to align, move in, a little bit of fun with text, a little bit of fun with beveling then as well. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'm going to be making lots more for the future. Have a great day.